All right. Yep.
Hello.
Hello again. Seeing you again.
Hi.
Hi.
Look at all crowded inside.
We have
the receiving line, which is perfect.
Come on in. Hi, I'm Ken.
Christine, we have assigned a seating for you all. So you're sitting here, Tracy's sitting here, you're right across, and you are right there as well. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're right here, Tracy. Yes, you do.
Is this me? Oh,
Yes.
my name on it?
Yes, it's all one-to-one personal.
Do we do
There, but we're. We've already lost
Where
him.
else? Right
We have
here.
assigned seats.
Yeah.
Got you right up front.
No.
So,
Hello.
You got the message a little early.
Yes, I got the
Thank you. I figure it's a late day anyway, so we might as well get started.
I caught you outside. We're good. We're covered.
Might have better set her over by the front. Fine. Okay. Thank you. Oh, you know, I need to grab.
well, thank you all for showing up early. So I'm going to get started early. It's fantastic. Or it actually gives me more time to sit up here and gas away, which I didn't think I would have. So I think first and foremost, I want to thank you all for coming in and provide you a orientation to how we've set up the next 2.5 hours or so. What we have here is we're fortunate to be joined by a graphic facilitator, Brandy Agerbeck from Chicago. So if you're not familiar with graphic facilitation, she is going to actually be representing your voice in this conversation, and she's going to be doing it by visually illustrating our conversation, our dialogue, etc. And she's going to be doing it real time, just there in the background. Potentially at the time that we have our break, we're probably going to have one illustration done. We'll put it up on that wall and start a new one. So that's Brandy. There's a new person that you haven't met in the room yet. She wasn't with us in the first meeting. Jess, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jess Richards. I am the media supervisor on the display planning team. So very excited to be here. Nice to meet you all.
We have, as I just introduced Jess, you probably saw the camera in the back corner. We are video recording this, and in 48 hours after this meeting, we plan to have 30-minute segments of footage of this entire experience online and accessible to you folks. One of the ways that it will be accessible to you folks are via the platforms that are right in front of you. We have set up for you, I think you might have gotten a request probably from Skip Pyle for your work email addresses, because we wanted to show you our document shares and show you our concept shares and show you how we collaborate, facilitate, and work through knowledge management. Obviously that's not available to us, which is totally understandable, so we thought we'd set you up on our platform regardless. So those are your netbooks. You can take them with you. They're yours. And what we've set them up for as a default page is customized portal interface to the OTO cloud, if you will, to our tools and technologies that will allow us to engage with you. The reason why we thought this was important is because we're not looking at this as a pitch so much, but as a real collaboration to get you a real campaign asset that if we are selected, we can get to market as soon as possible. And we know that that is something that you've afforded us 3 face-to-face, well, actually 4 face-to-face meetings. We already had one. We have this one. We have our creative brainstorming next week. And we have our final pitch in the 2nd week of July, I think. And so in between that time, we wanted to give you folks the ability to be able to watch us as we use our Basecamp knowledge store to upload content, to be able to interact with us via a private Twitter stream that we've set up called OTO Liberty. No one can see it. It's absolutely private. It's what you see at the top of your dashboard, in fact. Let me just go ahead and, not that, pull it up here. There we go. So it's at the top of your dashboard right here. And the way, how we're planning to use that, and we're actually have it real-time fed here, is as a parking lot. So if there's questions that you have, if there's ideas that you have, if there are things that we want to address later, feel free to type those in, hit publish. It will show up here. It will be part of our knowledge stream from this point to the time of our final pitch. All right? And then finally, the additional things that are on your interface, well, first and foremost, it's NetVibes, so it's connected to a catalog of 1,000 different widgets. So on your own time, if you want, play around with that. But here is your own secure access to our document store, which is Basecamp. It is also integrated with our creative collaboration tool for our creative process. It's called Concept Share. You'll see that next week. It's an online tool that we upload creative to. It will allow you to actually have tools to comment on, provide feedback, etc. So those are integrated together. Any update to that gets fed into this single feed. And you already have all your individual accesses to that. Finally, we have example widgets of access to Omniture. We have an example widget of a view for Cognos, which we'll get into at the end of the meeting. We have our own RSS feeds up here. But then finally, just to leave off of this, you'll see about 6 tabs beyond that. Those tabs represent close to 100 different RSS feeds that we segmented by the areas of interest that you folks are involved with professionally. So we've got an SEO, SEM tab, advertising, social media, email, a research and analytics, and a general insurance one. Those are for you folks these are feeds that we actually pulled out of otobuzz.com, which is our trend spotting site. That is a collection of close to 300 feeds. But we pulled these feeds down from that and integrated them into your portal view so that you have access to the types of content that we look at, that the feeds that we digest to stay on top of trends, etc. So that's for your own personal benefit, obviously at another time. So that is what you have in front of you. I want to be sensitive to your corporate policy. If for whatever reason you can't accept these, we'd like you to hold on to them until the end of the process. And if you can't accept them, give them back to us and we'll donate them to Junior Achievement, which is one of the non-for-profits that we support. So it's up to you. They're totally yours, and we would appreciate it if you took them with you and at least engaged with us via this platform through this process. That is sort of the orientation. Let's go ahead and put the presentation up so that I can give you an overall introduction and kick off the meeting. So this is made up of 5 primary parts. The agenda is, and I want to review this real quick, but then I'm going to stop. I'm going to ask each of you what you'd like to get out of this meeting and whether or not there's aspects of this agenda you'd like to see altered in any way. We want to make sure that this experience maps to exactly what you're looking to get out of this. First and foremost, we're going to have Dina Catano, who is our group director of our financial services practice, who's going to provide you a landscape analysis. Second, we're going to get into campaign design, and this is where Rob, Rex, and Cindy are going to come up here and with that support of OTOI's marketing services team, walk through both the campaign design, campaign planning, and optimization plan sections. And then the final part, the part that we'll end on, will be Jim Casale, who is our account director, who will walk through program management and next steps. Again, we're treating this as an active process, not as a pitch. So we want to provide you folks a view into how we see the follow-on steps in this whole process, and be able to be clear about setting expectations. So that's the agenda we have for the next 2.5 hours. I'm going to open it up to you folks real quick and ask you what you would like to get out of this.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you for the welcome today. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
And essentially what we want to hear from you today is essentially address any questions you may have about the planning process for the campaign. You know, we wanted this to be interactive in terms of, you know, you can kind of walk us through the process that you've been through so far. You know, we can address any questions, clarify any topics that may need clarification, and get things going for the next phase, which is the creative session. So that's one piece of our expectations. The other piece of expectations is really have a sense of how do you guys manage reporting and accessibility to data. We want to see some reports. We want to see if you have tools that provide, similar to this, some collaboration, and let us, get a sense of, okay, yesterday how did we do? Last month how did we do? By campaign. So
Excellent.
we want to have those visibilities, and hopefully we can accomplish this, in these 2.5 hours.
Great, Erica. Anyone else? Is that good?
I think we just want to see how you guys think and
Right.
see how, how it matches up with how we think.
All right. I think that's going to match very nicely to the agenda that we have in front of you. So, without further ado, Dino Catania will bring up the crazy Italian.
I'm going to take. All right. So if at some point I start speaking Italian, even if it's past 5 o'clock, I'm going to try to get to my favorite story. A few years ago, I was leading a bunch of Americans from Alcoa. They were in Italy doing due diligence to buy their Italian plants, and none of the aluminum worker at the plants in Italy spoke any English, obviously. So it was like 5 o'clock. We've been to 3 plants starting at 5 o'clock, and so the Italian engineer gives me like a whole answer to a question in Italian. I turned around to the American engineer and started rephrasing the question in Italian for a solid minute and a half. Like, this is the time of the day that I know I need to get away. So, the landscape analysis is it's a lot more ambitious as a name than what I'm trying to do here. It's basically, we spent the last week going through research on a series of topics, and this is sort of like the ground that we're starting from as we think about the campaign. And the goal of the section is really to make sure that it is a common ground, that the way that we're looking at the issue, the way that we're looking at the overall environment in which we're operating is the same way that you're looking at. So as we go through this, ask questions, make corrections, and hopefully we'll be all starting from the same plan. There are 3 parts that we looked at. First of all, we look at the rental market trends, since there's a pretty direct correlation between rental insurance and rentals. Then we took a look at the audience. How is the audience behaving here? And we focused primarily on the online audiences. The campaigns will be executed online. And then we took a look at what's going on with the competition, trends that we could see, and sort of like things that you've been doing well and that you could improve on. In terms of the rental markets, our first assumption when we went into this was that the current housing crisis had a big impact on the rental market and on the rise of that. And we started looking and digging deeply more at the data. The good news was that actually there is a big demographic trend that is going to drive growth in the rental market and growth in the specific segment that we're trying to get at. The rental houses have started growing since roughly 2004. 2 million were added between 2004 and 2007. There is right now, because of the current environment, like sort of an additional pressure on having more rentals because people are reluctant to buy, they can't get credit, they don't know what housing prices are going. But overall, it looks like it's a trend that it's going to go for quite a while. Some people estimate that over the next 10 years, there'll be roughly 350,000 new renters per month. And one little nugget that we found that relates more to the environment right now, I'm sure you've seen that report as well, but in April, the Insurance Research Council issued a report in which 14% of the respondents said that as a reaction to the current economic environment, they had canceled their rentals policy. That compared to roughly 5% who canceled the homeowner policy, and then roughly 9% of the people sold their car and therefore sold their vehicle policy. So if you look at why the trends are favorable, looking at this chart, this represents the portion of renters by age. Obviously not a big surprise, everybody is really young. And what you're seeing coming on in the market right now is this big growth of people that are going to be in their 20s, like from 2005 going through 2015. The green ones are 30 to 34, but then the blue and red ones are the sort of 20 to 29 age. And this trend, actually, if you look at the way that the births have been going in Italy, in the U.S. No, Italy is actually Italy's at 0 growth, and it's a problem that we have right now. But the way that they own Chrysler, they used to be owned by GM, and GM paid them money to not own them anymore. So the way the birth have been going between 1995 and 2005, that trend is only going to go, it's going to keep steadily going up. We also looked, given you give us 15 DMAs, we looked at where the major rental units are. Not a lot of surprises on the left side of here. We found a few major metropolitan areas with a lot of rental units that were not in their DMA, so you can expect to see something addressing in that. And that, looking more, obviously the campaign is for the short term, but if we're looking, some of your goals were to increase visibility of Liberty Mutual as a brand. So we also looked at places where there could be growth of rentals. As you can see, the blue bubbles are growth above 5 or 4%. The yellow bubbles are growth below 4%, but major growth areas in rentals. West Coast, where you guys told us are doing pretty good from a renting standpoint. Some up on the Upper East, that's probably your best corridor, and then Texas and sort of the Atlanta area and the Carolinas. So overall, a favorable environment for rentals and therefore a fairly large growing market. Questions, thoughts, anything new, surprising here?
No.
All right, good. Then we took a look at the audience, where they are. Obviously, not a surprise again, a large portion of the audience does not have renter's insurance. We've seen numbers that range from only 20% of people have renter's insurance to roughly 40–50% have it. But it is still like a very large untapped market. If we look at the population that is online, in terms of the two demographics that you gave us, the younger opportunity is a lot larger than the older opportunity for a variety of reasons. In terms of how the process is done and how people buy renter's insurance, offline is still very important, but when you go online, if you look at the major channels, like search is the primary channel, which is once again not a surprise if you look at how people buy in the other industries. Search engine is the #1 or #2 source of information for 90% of the products that people go on the web. And then finally, and this is reflected also in the memo that you gave us, or in the creative brief, price and understanding of the products are the two larger drivers of barriers to purchase. So just to take a quick look, this is the overall online consumers based on Jupiter research, and 17% are uninsured. 11% are renters that are insured. So this would imply a ratio of roughly 60% uninsured, 40% uninsured. The latest Forrester Technographic Survey had the uninsured renters at around insured renters at about 20% of the market, so wide variety. Where the data starts getting interesting is if we look, this is the ComScore distribution of the audience, and if we look at where our target customers sit, people who are 21 to 34 make up roughly 50% of the population of online renters. People in the 45 to 64 are only 20%. And then when you go and look at their behaviors, the blue bars represent the people who actually search for insurance online or research it online, and then red bars, people who convert online, green bars, people who have just bought offline insurance. So assuming this is not big news to you as well, the people who purchase online are less than the people who research it, but the people who even purchase offline among the older population are even more than the one who even look online. So what we took away from this is obviously you will see probably a higher emphasis into really addressing the younger population online, and then sort of still having an online strategy for the older segment, but de-emphasize part of the investment there. This, in terms of where people look when they research renter's insurance, once again, this is a specific survey from Jupiter. #1 source is still the agent or the insurance company. The red bars are offline sources. And then, as I said earlier, search engine leads online. This is a trend of people, we ran a search of the sort of top 10 converting terms related to renter's insurance, and look at how was the distribution among different age groups across the last sort of 14 months. And the spaghetti chart here shows that basically you cannot really tell that there's one group that is more consistently searching more than everybody else. If you look to the last 2 or 3 months, the sort of this 35-44 and the 45-54 are the dominant searches. And what this sort of our deduction from that is that probably as you get down to the end of the funnel, which is the type of terms that we looked at in here, then the mix between the people that are there is a lot more balanced. And so search is still a very appropriate tool to go after that closure of the funnel for the older population.
But I also think, actually, while we've got this up, we don't like have this information later, but obviously there's one place up there where it kind of jumps out that one of them is way more active than the others. And so what we're going to talk about as most of this campaign, you can see it's 25 to 34 jumps way up. And so that's kind of another thing that supports what we were talking about doing.
It's sort of expanding the...
Yeah. But this view is quite interesting, and I'm glad you had it by month because it shows seasonality. So the younger audiences, people that are studying or just graduating, they do it between May and September, at a more predominant basis.
Yeah.
So.
And the other interesting point, there's the spike at the end of the year also with them, right? So, it could be that, shifting places, semesters, if they're in graduate school, things like that, but obviously there's another peak period there that might be interesting to hit that audience.
Is that spike familiar to you? I mean, is you see anything on here surprising, or is that December spike fit your expectations?
Well, the December spike, or the January spike for the purple one, it's kind of, strange, but the red line.
Yeah, the red line.
Is, I would say, if you do a weighted average, probably the red line is very prominent because they are more heavy online users. But the red line is almost a good match with the activity that we see on our side. Yeah. It's almost, it peaks significantly, starts late April, May, then goes all the way up to the early fall.
And it's interesting. I actually think there's potentially some rationale around the purple spike that we're seeing in January, February timeframes mapping back to potential home foreclosures at the beginning of the year and what was going on with the housing market.
We did try to correlate that against the trends in mover searches, and that was the only set of volume that didn't correlate with each other, where the mover searches were down there, but there was a bit of a mini peak for the rental insurance market, so that was